Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I want to talk about the future of law enforcement because I think the future of law enforcement is actually crowdsourcing, and I think the riots at the Capitol building just prove that. Now, as I've been watching the aftermath of these January 6th riots and seeing how law enforcement is moving as quick as they can to identify and arrest those who broke into the Capitol building or worse, I think it's becoming apparent that the future of investigations is awareness through others, basically via social media, and then those who alert law enforcement as they see this unfold, oftentimes live. Now, the Capitol itself is under heavy surveillance by cameras. There is a plethora of footage that law enforcement can scan and use from the building itself, and then use that as actionable intel as they try to identify criminals. But like so many other cases, it's really coming down to the general public's ability to inform the FBI and law enforcement of who these people are. Now, think back to the 1990s for a second, to Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. It was his brother and sister-in-law who actually recognized his words and thoughts when his manifesto was published in the Washington Post, and so they went ahead and contacted the FBI. If anything, I think that shows you the power of crowdsourcing even before the technological age of social media and sharing that we have now. Today, it doesn't take a single newspaper to print a manifesto. All it takes is finding their Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or Parler account to find out their thoughts, pictures, videos, even GPS locations, and then one single follower or concerned friend basically has to report them. Now consider how many people at the Capitol were caught and arrested essentially in this manner. First is Richard Barnett, also known as Big O of Arkansas. He was the one that got into Nancy Pelosi's office. He stole an envelope. You could see him put his feet up on her desk and all of that. He even did a TV interview about it, holding her envelope. He was then identified by a slew of people that basically were in his hometown, and sure enough, he was arrested when he got back to Arkansas. Look at Larry Rendell Brock. This is a retired Air Force officer from Texas. His ex-wife actually spotted him on one of the streaming videos that the rioters took and called the FBI. She noticed the patch that he was wearing, obviously his face. He was in basically body armor and a helmet and all these things, carrying flex cuffs as well. She called the FBI concerned, and sure enough, he was identified and arrested thanks to her. Look at Jacob Anthony Chansley, also known as Jake Angeli, or also known as the QAnon Shaman. That was the guy with the fur and the horns and all that kind of stuff. So many videos of him at past events that people who track this kind of stuff said, wait a second, we've seen that guy. We saw him in Phoenix, and sure enough, there he was. Not to mention his social media accounts that identified him instantly. He even went public confirming that he was actually there and it was him, when there was an attempt made by his side of this political debate to label him as Antifa, which obviously didn't sit well with him, and so he went public. He is now arrested, essentially going to be seeking, or going to be put in front of trial. That also brings us to Derrick Evans. Derrick is was a West Virginia state lawmaker, an elected official who recorded himself on his own phone, basically yelling into it, Derrick Evans is in the Capitol, Derrick Evans is in the Capitol, as they are charging into the Capitol building. And obviously he has been caught because he outed himself, because people that were witnessing this and recording this and streaming this and viewing his stream turned him in, and on and on and on. So do you see where I'm going with this? Multiple sources are saying that the FBI has now received over 100,000 pieces of digital evidence from concerned citizens that have seen their friends, loved ones, and relatives adopt QAnon conspiracy theories and go deeper and deeper and deeper into this realm, which inevitably a whole chunk of them ended up at the Capitol, storming it in, believing that it was a coup or a revolution. It goes even further than that, and people are really getting in on this. A woman on the dating app Bumble decided to switch her political affiliation in her profile to conservative so she could get paired with single guys that were potentially in attendance basically at the riot. And sure enough, she started getting pics and videos from prospective suitors that were all too happy to send her this info, thinking she was a conservative and this would impress her in some way, shape, or form. She then turned over all of this information that she got from Bumble identifying the user to the FBI. Since then, Bumble has actually now killed their political affiliation option in their app. So if you are single and use Bumble in your profile, you no longer have the ability to say liberal, conservative, or anything in between. Now, also, citizens are taking basically one step further and taking all of this scraped and stolen Parler data and putting it out there that is digestible, not just for us to see, but also for law enforcement, which is aiding them as well. Somebody put together a Google Maps site where basically they have links to a ton of the Parler scrape videos in and around the Capitol during that time period, tagging them to their GPS coordinates per metadata. And so you can actually click on it, and sure enough, all of these videos around the Capitol show videos not with the tagging and the metadata and everything else. We are gathering all of this information, and it is aiding law enforcement. And my point is simply this. We are in a new era where everybody has a desire to share everything they do. And so social media companies are collecting everything that you're saying, you're doing, where you are, thanks to GPS, cell tower location, metadata, all these kinds of things. It's going to be virtually impossible to commit a crime like this and get away with it in the future. And even if you are off the grid saying, okay, I'm going to leave all the technology at home so that my phone can't track me, and my cell phone basically says, I'm back here wherever I am as opposed to in the Capitol, there's going to be a million people around you that didn't get that memo, that aren't thinking that through, that are going to be live streaming this because maybe they think they're on the right side of history and they want to record it for posterity, whatever that reason is. But we are sitting on a gold mine of data that aids law enforcement, which when we are talking about a massive amount of people doing a lot of crime, that is a very good thing. Conversely, the other side of that is, does that aid our citizen journalists, our people that are just simply streaming and gathering these things? Does this also aid the surveillance state, and where is the privacy in between? I typically would not consent, let's say, if I'm out in public, just law-abiding, doing stuff, I would not want to consent to be on video, but sometimes we don't have a choice. And so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this. This is, I think, the future of law enforcement. And when we look at the way states are going, whether it's the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, all of that, or we're looking at an authoritarian surveillance state like China, where they're putting up 200 cameras, on the street per block, kind of thing. Where's the balance between those? But this is the future of law enforcement, and as we see more events like this that happen, and all of our intel agencies are predicting that while this was the first and it was a failed attempt at taking over the building or changing the government, we are not going to see the end of this right now, which means this comes into play. Will they get smarter? Will they start leaving that technology at home? Will half of them not get the memo? And so in which case it makes the other half irrelevant that are trying to be off the grid. I'm curious to know where this goes, and that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.